The credit card trap. How credit cards really work and how to make them work for you. Imagine this. You walk into a store, you see something you want, you don't have enough cash, but then you remember something, you have a credit card. One swipe and suddenly, you can buy it. No cash leaves your bank account today. It feels easy, almost painless. But here's the question nobody asks at the checkout counter. Who is actually paying for this purchase, and when? Because a credit card doesn't create money. It creates access to borrowed money. And that difference can completely change your financial life. Music BUILDS? For millions of people, a credit card is simply a piece of plastic or an app on a phone. But behind that tiny rectangle is an enormous financial system. Banks, payment networks, merchants, interest, fees, rewards, credit scores, consumer psychology, and billions of dollars moving through the global economy. And if you don't understand how that system works, you aren't really controlling your credit card is controlling you. Cut to fast montage: online shopping, restaurant payments, airline tickets, streaming subscriptions, a new phone, a new laptop, a weekend trip, buy now, pay later, earn rewards, get cashback, 0% interest. Every message seems to tell you the same thing: spend. But responsible financial thinking asks a different question. Should I spend? That's the difference between using credit and depending on credit. Today, we're going to break down the credit card system from the ground up. No complicated financial language. No pretending that credit cards are automatically good. And no pretending that they're automatically evil. We're going to understand what actually happens when you swipe a card. We're going to understand the billing cycle. We're going to understand the statement. We're going to understand APR. We're going to understand minimum payments. We're going to understand interest. We're going to understand rewards. We're going to understand credit scores. And most importantly, we're going to build a system for using credit responsibly. Because here's the central idea of this entire documentary. A credit card should be a payment tool, not an excuse to spend money you don't have. Chapter 1: The Magic of the Swipe. Narrator. Let's start with something incredibly simple. You have a credit card with a $5,000 credit limit. You walk into a store and buy a $500 laptop. You tap your card. Approved. Congratulations. You now owe the card issuer $500. You didn't receive free money. You didn't increase your wealth by $500. You simply moved $500 of purchasing power from the future into the present. That's what credit does. It allows you to use borrowed purchasing power today with the expectation that you'll repay it later. And that word later is where the entire story begins. Because later can mean, I'll pay the full balance when the statement comes. Or it can become, I'll pay the minimum. Then I'll pay more next month. Then I'll deal with it later. And eventually, the balance can become a financial burden. The card itself didn't make that decision. The behavior did. Chapter 2: The Billing Cycle. Narrator. Now let's imagine your card has a monthly billing cycle. During that period, you make several purchases: $30 for dinner, $60 for groceries, $100 for a jacket, $250 for electronics. At the end of the billing cycle, the card issuer creates a statement. That statement summarizes what happened. It can include your previous balance, your new purchases, payments you've made, fees if any, interest if any, your statement balance, your minimum payment, and your payment due date. This is one of the most important documents in your financial life. Yet many people barely look at it. They open the app, see a number, and close the app. Don't do that. A financially responsible cardholder knows what they owe, because you cannot manage what you refuse to measure. Chapter 3: The Minimum Payment Trap. Narrator. Now we reach one of the most misunderstood ideas in credit cards: the minimum payment. Suppose your statement says, balance, $2,000 and below it, minimum payment. $60. You might think, great, I only need to pay $60. But that's not necessarily the full financial story. Depending on the card's terms, carrying a balance can result in interest charges. And when interest accumulates, your debt can take much longer to eliminate. This is why the phrase, I can afford the minimum payment, is not the same as, I can afford this purchase. Those are two completely different statements. You might be able to make the minimum payment while still being unable to comfortably afford the purchase. That's a crucial distinction. Chapter 4: APR. Without the confusion. Narrator. APR stands for annual percentage rate. The exact way interest is calculated depends on the card agreement and issuer. But conceptually, think of APR as a way of expressing the annualized cost of borrowing. Here's the important lesson. Don't choose a credit card simply because the monthly payment looks small. Look at the total cost of borrowing, because a small payment can sometimes hide a large amount of interest over time. This is why financial literacy matters. The numbers aren't the enemy. Not understanding the numbers is the enemy. Chapter 5, the Credit Card Psychology Narrator. Now let's move beyond mathematics, because credit cards aren't just financial products. They're also psychological products. Think about buying something with cash. You physically hand over money. You see it disappear. Now compare that with tapping a phone, beep, approved, transaction complete. The emotional experience can feel very different, and that matters, because when spending feels painless, it's easier to spend more. This is why one of the most powerful credit card rules isn't mathematical, it's behavioral. Never let convenience eliminate awareness. Track your purchases, know your balance, know your due date, and never confuse your available credit with your available wealth. If your card says $5,000 available, that does not mean, I have $5,000 to spend. It means, I may be able to borrow up to this amount under my card's terms. That's a completely different idea. Chapter 6, the Reward Illusion Narrator. Now let's talk about the part everyone loves. Rewards, cashback, points, travel rewards, discounts. It sounds amazing. Spend money and get something back. But here's the question. Would you have made the purchase if there were no reward? If the answer is no, the reward may have encouraged the spending. Imagine you spend $1,000 unnecessarily just to earn $20 worth of rewards. You didn't make $20. You spent $1,000 to get $20. That's why sophisticated financial thinking asks, did the reward reduce my cost, or did the reward increase my spending? Rewards can be useful, but only when the underlying spending is already sensible. Chapter 7, the Credit Score Narrator. Now we arrive at another major concept, the credit score. A credit score is designed to help lenders assess credit risk. Different countries use different systems. Different lenders can use different scoring models, but generally, responsible borrowing behavior can matter. Payment history can matter. How much credit you're using can matter. How long you've had credit can matter, and other factors can also be considered. The important lesson is simple. A credit score is not your financial identity. It's one financial measurement. You can have a strong credit score and still make terrible financial decisions. You can also have a modest credit history while building excellent financial habits. So don't chase a number blindly. Build the behavior that makes the number meaningful. Chapter 8, the Golden Rule Narrator. If there's one principle I want you to remember from this entire documentary, it's this. Don't use a credit card to buy something you couldn't reasonably afford without the credit card. That doesn't mean credit cards have no legitimate purpose. They can provide convenience. They can provide payment flexibility. They can offer rewards. They can be useful for building a responsible credit history where applicable. But the foundation should remain, spend intentionally, track everything. Understand the terms, pay on time. And when possible, avoid carrying costly revolving debt, because the goal isn't to look rich. The goal is to become financially resilient. Final chapter, who is really in control? Music slows, narrator. At the beginning of this documentary, we asked a question, who is actually paying for the purchase? Now you know the answer. You are. The future version of you. Every credit card purchase is a decision involving your future cash flow. That's why the smartest credit card user isn't the person with the highest limit. It isn't the person with the most cards. It isn't the person collecting the most points. And it isn't the person who buys the most expensive things. The smartest user is the person who understands the system and maintains control. Because financial freedom isn't about having unlimited purchasing power. It's about needing less borrowed power to live the life you want. So the next time you hear, just put it on the card. Pause, ask yourself, do I actually need it? Can I afford it? What are the terms? When is the payment due? What happens if I don't pay the full balance? And most importantly, am I using the card? Or is the card using me? Fade to black, ON screen, know the TERMS, control the spending, respect the debt, build the future. Narrator, because a credit card can be a useful financial tool, but only when the person holding it understands the tool. End.